Ain't no retentive, but it's what has to happen. So the interesting thing is I get asked, because of my history of being in and around the music industry, like, how did I know that I belong? You know how people are in the industry, right? And let's say you're a photographer, for argument's sake, right? How do you know you belong, right? There's that one picture that you take, right? Or there's that one view that you get that everybody reacts to in a certain way. You say, woo, and you realize that you captured that look of that view. So that speaks to you being ready. And you know you're ready at that point in time, right? Because you have to cross that threshold of I want to do this, to I can do this, to I'm good at this. It's a difference. It's a difference. So how did I know? Is what I'm asked is that I knew that I could do this for real. So I'm going to share with you 3 short stories.
Industry rule number 4080. Industry rule number 4080. Record company people are shady. Industry rule number 4080. Record company people are shady.
First one, and these are, wow, this is I don't want to age me, but to go back. The first one is Keith Murray. Keith Murray was signed to the label through another A&R guy, and I was doing sample clearances at that time. It was my job to do his sample clearances, and his album was done. I was hanging out with him and Eric Sermon and stuff like that. And basically, the first single, the most beautifulest thing in the world, was recorded. Now, back then, I don't know if you call this, every record had a remix. Every record had a remix, almost like remix was status quo 1001. So what happened was that Eric Sermon remixed The Most Beautifulest Thing, and he remixed it with the Isley Brothers sample, In Between the Sheets. That was the remix. What happened was that it was given to me for the sample to clear, and the head of the department said, what do you think of the remix? And I said to him very deadpan and very quickly, sounds like the remix is the single, and the single should be the remix. You should put this one out as the single and not do it as a remix. For those that know the Keith Murray's history, the rest is history. The Most Beautifulest Thing came out. It was very successful for him, and I got started his career. So that was one of the first things where somebody came to me, I made a decision, and the decision was implemented, and it worked, and it succeeded. Now, it's very important for that time for Keith Murray, because that was his very first single, and if his career path could have been a different trajectory if that didn't happen. Second example I'll give you is working with A Tribe Called Quest. I know A Tribe Called Quest for about 2 or 3 albums. This is after the Midnight Marauders album. This is the album Beats, Rhymes, and Life. And as they start recording the album, and I have full access to the studios, which they never gave people access to the studios. You literally had to be on a list and make a phone call to call into the studio to be allowed in the studio. You could not just walk into the studio. But I had carte blanche to walk into the studio, and this is the project where Consequence was introduced to the world. I did not know this. I don't think anybody knew this. Consequence was just in the studio writing rhymes. I didn't know at that time I was Q-Tip's cousin, and he's writing and he's rhyming. Now, you know, this is Tribe Called Quest coming off of Midnight Marauders, so this is 2 successful albums. I'm not criticizing. They do what they do. I'm just watching it, but I'm recognizing that Consequence is on this album. I found out he's Q-Tip's cousin. We get along well. I hook him up with a publishing deal. Shout out to Kamala. I shouldn't say shout out. I never say that. But Kamala knows what's going on with that. And at some point, I'm listening to the record and recognize there's a lot of Consequence and not a lot of Fife on the album. But Tribe Called Quest is Q-Tip, Fife, and Ali. It's not Q-Tip, the new guy, right? So I'm having that conversation with the label. But anyway, I'm talking to Ali about this. And I got another story about neoclassic soul I'll share with you maybe another time. But I'm talking to Ali, and Ali's playing this one track. And they're on the fence about the record. They're like, I'm not sure if we're going to do it. I'm not sure if we're going to record it. I don't know if we really like it like that. You know, this, that, third, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, yo, this is the record. I said, what's the name of the record? So the record's called Stressed Out. But we're not sure if we're going to do it. So literally, I go to the next A&R meeting, and I literally say out loud, I said, look, they're making their new album. You know, we're letting them do what they want to do. Album sounds pretty decent. We need to hear more Fife on the album. But there is this one song. There's this one song that they're playing that they're not sure if they want to record this song for the album. I'm telling you straight up and down, if this song is not on the album's not going to be the same album. It's not. The song's called Stressed Out. They have to record this song. They have to record this song. So the label went back and spoke to Chris Lighty, rest in peace, about the situation. Chris Lighty didn't like me after that point because in his eyes, I got in the middle of the project. But I'm the A&R person. I'm the label representative responsible for the album, the spending of the album, the recording of the album, the budgeting, this, that, and the third. So I stayed in contact with Ali about it because Ali at this point in time, I don't know if you realize, he's learning how to play the bass. And the person that's teaching him how to play bass, ready for this, is Rafael Saadiq. So he's learning from him. So what ends up happening is that Rafael Saadiq ends up playing on the song. They end up getting Faith Evans to sing on the song, and Stressed Out ends up becoming the biggest record on that album that comes out. Now, the album wasn't as successful as the previous albums, but that single is the one that kept the album and kept the group moving. And again, it's something that I identified, and I let people know what was going on. And at that point in time, who's going to tell the Tribe Called Quest what they can and what they can't do? But at that point in time, I kind of did, if you will, or spoke my mind about what I thought should be done. And that record became successful for them, and they moved on career-wise, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the second time that I recognized something and said, we need to do this. Third time was the most difficult one. I was working with KRS-One. KRS-One. KRS-One had a resurgence in his career because he started working with DJ Premier from Gangstarr. He was working with him on records, and for the past 2 or 3 albums, DJ Premier was on the album doing what was perceived as, I don't say the singles, but the records of focus on the album. As we're recording this album, and the album's called I Got Next, Primo was ready to work with KRS-One. He's ready to work with him. But at this point in time, Primo has become Primo. He's become Primo. So no problem. I have the relationship with him and this guy. So I go to the studio, I talk to Primo and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so Primo, we got to get Chris on the schedule so we can record the records for his album. He's like, no problem. He says, but here's my problem though. Not my problem. Here's my situation. I got to record Nas. I got to get Biggie done. I got to get Jay-Z done. I got to get J. Rue done. I got to get Gangstarr done. And I got a couple remixes to do. So it's not that we can't do it. It's not a problem. It's just going to take a minute. I might be like a month down the line to get these records recorded. And I said, no problem. Now, Chris Parker is ready to record. He's like, just let me know when to go in. I'm ready to go. So I have to let him know that he has to wait to get Primo. So KRS-One, now think about the ones I'm talking about at this time. Okay, it's Nas, it's Jay-Z, it's Biggie, it's Gangstarr, okay, and it's KRS-One. So from a timeline standpoint, he's before them as far as he's been in the game longer. So in his egotistical mind, or his creative mind, or his artistical mind, he doesn't think he has to wait. He says, I should go first. These are my kids. They listen to me growing up, okay? I shouldn't have to wait for Nas. Nas should have to wait for me. Literally what he said, okay? JC should have to wait for me. I'm laughing and joking, not because he's right, not because he's wrong. That's just his perspective, okay? Then he takes it a step further and says, I've been producing records my whole career. I don't need Premiere. So I'll just make the album myself. I said, okay. I said, okay. And then I also said, oh, God. Because at that point in time, I said, not that he cannot do what he is saying. I do not think we're going to get the product that we need if we don't have Premiere on this album. Especially with Premiere being on skates with Smash Records after Smash Street Records. So this is the first record I'm working with Chris by myself, so I don't want to be the guy that didn't get DJ Premier. Otherwise, I'm a horrible executive, if you will. But it turns out Primo did not work out, and Chris didn't want. It just didn't work out schedule-wise. So He's recording his album because he's legend. So I'm trying to find this record. I got to find this record. If I can't get Premiere, I got to find this record. So a producer named Jesse West, who used to work with Bad Boy, comes into my office. He's actually trying to shop his group, and he's playing me these beats. He plays me this one beat, and I said, stop, what's that right there? He said, it's just something I'm working on. I said, don't stop, don't work on it. I need you to finish that, bring that back to me tomorrow. I said, tomorrow, like go home, finish it, and bring it back. Like don't give me some 2-week stuff. Because Jesse West is an up-and-coming producer. He's not Premiere. Yeah. So he comes back the next day, drops it off. And at this point in time, Chris and me are not talking. He says he's upset with me because he thinks he's mad at me because I'm trying to push Premiere on him. I should be respecting the fact that he could do it himself. I'm not respecting his artistry. So he has me on, quote, timeout, if you will. I can't go to the studio. Don't let me in. This, that, blah, blah, blah. This is our relationship. Hate, love. So I called the studio and I said, Chris, he's like, what do you want? Now, My industry name is Tally. Everybody calls me Tally. My real name is Kenyatta. Chris had a habit of calling me Kenyatta because he didn't want to respectfully call me Tally. That's how deep he goes. Right? So he said, so what do you want, Kenyatta? And I said, nothing. I just want to let you know I'm dropping by the studio. I'm dropping off this record, and it's your first single. He's like, yeah, whatever you say. So he's talking to me, so I said, I'm just letting you know I'm dropping off your first single. So I'm definitely dropping off your first record. He said, okay. So I go by the studio. I walk in. He's recording in the booth. Kenny Parker's there. I literally just walk into the booth, take this. Back then they had these things called DATs. I literally take this DAT, I put it on the console, and I walk away. Talk to you tomorrow, Chris. See you later. I just leave it and walk away. I don't hear from him for 2 days. 2 days later, he calls me at the office and says, hey, Tally. Get it? Not Kenyatta. Hey, Tally. You should come by the studio today. Oh, I should come by the studio today? Like, you're giving out your gifting studio time today? Say you should come by. I said, well, what time are you going to be there? He says, you give me the time. I said, I'll give you guys time, so I'll come in. So I go by the studio, and I drop in, and almost in the same way how I just dropped off the DAT and walked away, he just presses play and steps to the side. And I hear, step into a world where hip-hop is. I says, oh, so I must be right then. Because you recorded the record I gave you in less than 2 days. So I said, okay, so you're listening to me. So I'm listening to the record. Record is what it is. And I say to myself, the hook is good. I know the track is good because I called it. I said, I just need to hear Chris be Chris. I need to hear KRS-One be KRS-One. Because if he does like the Chris lyrical thing, then I know we got what we need. So I'm listening. And then he says this line. I'm not saying I'm number one. Oh, I'm sorry I lied. I'm number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I stop right there and I say, we got what we need. Got what we need. That ended up becoming Chris's biggest record, I believe, for his career. I got past the DJ Premier thing. That album went gold plus. And that was the third time that at that point in time, I said to myself in my mind, I got this. I don't need, just let me go do what I do with artists. I'll get the records. I know what I'm listening for, what I'm looking for, this, that, and the third. I also remember with that record that Puffy wanted to remix it and Pete Rock wanted to remix it. Like the record was very strong in the hip hop community that he wanted to be a part of that exercise. So that's how those are the core things that I have touched. That established me as an executive to say, I know what I am doing. Also established me within the company to say, let him go make the records. So when it's time to work with Keith Murray, just leave him alone. It's time to go work with, I was working with R. Kelly at that time before he got in trouble. Go let him do what he wants to do. Working with Too Short, go let him do what he wants to do. Working with E4, let him go do what he do. So those are my, at that label, there's more different labels. That's my watershed moment at that label with me establishing myself as an executive and me knowing that I was doing what I'm doing. Storytime with Tally.